Police humiliates a black student, then freezes when her father steps out of a government helicopter. They told her to get on the ground like the dog you are. What they didn't know, the dog was the daughter of the man who controlled their funding. The afternoon heat in Eastbrook hit like a slap. No breeze, no mercy, just sun baking pavement and tension simmering beneath skin. Janae Carter adjusted the strap of her backpack as she crossed the quad of Rutherford University. Just another black girl on a predominantly white campus, trying to earn her way up without making too many waves. But waves have a funny way of finding you when your skin speaks louder than your GPA. She was heading to the library, her phone still warm from a heated call with her mom. Her dad hadn't returned for months. Some mission, some top-level classified nonsense. Always the diplomat, always the ghost. And now he was ghosting her birthday too. She never saw the patrol car pull up. Stop right there, hands visible. The shout cracked through campus like a whip. Students looked up from benches, eyes already forming their own stories. What? She turned, confused. Two officers, pale as the sky was bright, advanced. One had his hand on his weapon. You fit the description of a suspect involved in a robbery reported 10 minutes ago, one said. In a hoodie and jeans? She scoffed. So every black student here is a suspect? Don't mouth off, the shorter one snapped. ID? Now, I'm a student. I live here. We asked for ID. Janae reached into her bag slowly, keeping eye contact, praying they wouldn't jump. She handed over her student ID. They didn't even look. Turn around, hands on your head. You've got my ID. You can check the timestamp of where I swiped in 10 minutes ago. I said turn around. The shove came fast. Her knees scraped the concrete as she fell. People were recording now. A few students gasped. One laughed. Damn, someone muttered. She really gonna get cuffed on campus? Knees pressed into her back. Her cheek hit warm asphalt. What the hell is this? She screamed. This is procedure, the taller cop said, cuffing her roughly. Her backpack was ripped open. Books, notebooks, a crumpled protein bar, and her favorite silver pen scattered on the walkway. Her wrist stung. Her pride stung more. And all she could hear now were the clicks of cameras. The viral kind. Miles away, inside a soundproofed government command center, a red light blinked on a secure line. The Secretary of International Defense, a tall, sharp-eyed black man in his 50s, leaned forward from his desk. He answered, emotionlessly. This is Carter. A trembling voice spoke. Sir, your daughter. Something's happened. They held Janae in a temporary cell on campus security grounds, a gray, stale-smelling room with one flickering light and a bench that felt like concrete wrapped in regret. She didn't cry. She stared at the wall, refusing to blink. Her hands were bruised from the cuffs. Her voice was hoarse from explaining the truth. No one listened. She overheard one officer saying, just another one trying to play the race card. Bet she'll be screaming civil rights in 3-2-inch. Is it true? She asked the female guard watching the cameras. Do you guys train for this? For humiliation. The woman didn't answer. Outside, someone was yelling. The words weren't clear. Just tension, movement, radio chatter, then silence. And then, the deep, unmistakable thrum of a rotor. WHUPWHUPWHUPWHUP came from above. A helicopter, low, close, over campus buildings. Students stared up, some recording. Faculty squinted, shielding their eyes. It landed in the quad, right where she'd been tackled earlier. Dust exploded outward in a spiral. The door swung open. A pair of polished black shoes stepped out. Then the suit. Then the man. Tall, imposing, with eyes that had seen war zones and negotiated peace treaties. Where is my daughter? He said it like a sentence, not a question. The two officers from earlier stood stiff, suddenly sweating beneath their body armor. The shorter one blinked rapidly. You're? Yes, I'm him. He strode past them without another word. Inside the holding room, the door burst open. Janae looked up. Dad. He didn't speak. He took one long look at her swollen wrists, her bloody jeans. Then he turned. Every camera in this building is now under federal authority, he said to the campus chief. You can't just... Oh, but I can. He handed over a document with a red stamp. She read the header aloud. Office of the President? He didn't look back. This is no longer your jurisdiction. The apology came fast. Too fast. The university issued a statement. The campus police department announced a review of procedures. The officers were placed on administrative leave. Janae was offered a scholarship extension and free counseling. But the world had already seen. The footage had gone viral in under an hour. Justice for Janae was trending worldwide. Civil rights groups rallied. Protests ignited. Black students across the country spoke out. And her father? He didn't just speak. He testified. Before Congress. Before every camera. Before every student watching. My daughter was treated as less than human, he said. Not because of what she did, but because of what she looked like. Silence in the chamber. I spent my life defending this nation's values abroad. It seems now I must defend them at home. The night after his testimony, the streets of D.C. were glowing not with celebration, but with fire. Peaceful protests had erupted in over a dozen cities. Crowds marched with cardboard signs, megaphones, and unwavering fury. The footage of Janae, face pressed to concrete, had been slowed down, remixed, and shared millions of times. Every new angle exposed a fresh wound in the nation's conscience. Inside her apartment, Janae sat on the couch in silence, the television muted. Her hands were wrapped in gauze. She hadn't left home in 2 days. Her phone buzzed again. Interview requests, law firms, civil rights advocates, talk shows, politicians. Everyone wanted a piece of the girl who had been broken, then rescued by power. Her father entered quietly, carrying a mug of hot chamomile. He placed it on the table and sat across from her. I'm sorry I wasn't there before, he said. No tie now, just a sweatshirt, a rare crack in the armor. You were there, she muttered, when it was already too late. He looked down. You're right. Silence. Heavy like thunder before the first strike. Janae broke it. They looked at me like I didn't belong, like I was a problem that needed to be handled. Dad, they enjoyed it. I know. And if you hadn't shown up with a goddamn helicopter, they'd still be calling me a suspect. Her voice trembled. I had to scream just to be seen, just to be believed. But it only mattered once they saw who you were. He leaned forward. That's why it has to change. Not just for you. For everyone they don't see. 2 weeks later, she walked back onto campus. The whispers followed her like shadows. That's the girl. Did you see her dad? Whole damn helicopter. She's probably suing the school. Students parted as she passed, like they expected her to explode. She went straight to class. Professor Halberstam paused as she entered. Janae, he said, voice careful. We're glad to see you back. She gave him a tight nod. The seat behind her remained empty. No one sat beside her anymore. Late that night, she found herself scrolling through DMs from strangers. Most supportive. Some violent. You're just another entitled brat with a powerful daddy. Bet you planned it. Enjoy your 15 minutes. She closed the app. Her chest was tight. She walked to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were tired. Her hair frizzy. Her soul exhausted. That's when she decided she wasn't going to be a symbol someone else defined. By the following month, she was speaking at universities. Not just about her experience, but about how systemic racism hides in plain sight. About humiliation masquerading as protocol. About students too afraid to report abuse because no one would believe them. She started organizing. The movement gained a name. Unseen No More. Her story, once a headline, became a rallying cry. At one event in Atlanta, the crowd swelled beyond the hall's capacity. A young man took the stage after her, holding a photo of his brother killed during a traffic stop. I never thought someone like you would care, he told her. Janae blinked back tears. I am your brother, she said. We are each other's mirrors. And they've tried to shatter every one of us. Back in D.C., her father faced a storm of his own. Behind closed doors, pressure was mounting. Senators, donors, defense contractors all grumbling about optics, overreach, improper use of a government helicopter. I wasn't rescuing a daughter, he told them bluntly. I was stopping a cover-up. A junior aide leaned in. Sir, the president is asking if this is going to turn into a re-election issue. He stood. It's already a re-election issue, just not the way you think. They threatened to remove him from post. He smiled. Try. Then came the lawsuit, filed on behalf of Janae Carter versus Eastbrook Police Department, Rutherford Campus Security, and the two officers, Marcus Renshaw and Tyler Briggs. The charge? Violation of civil rights, excessive force, and unlawful detention. Discovery unearthed disturbing patterns. Renshaw had been accused of excessive force before. Complaints buried. Footage lost. Briggs had posted memes mocking Black Lives Matter. His locker held a flag with a thin blue line. The university tried to settle. The Carters refused. This isn't about money, Janae said at the press conference. It's about message. The officers' lawyers claimed standard procedure, claimed fear, claimed confusion under pressure. They weren't confused, Janae said. They were confident. Confident that the system would protect them, no matter what they did to me. The trial began in the fall. It was standing room only. News crews lined the courthouse steps. Students came from all over the country, holding signs with her name. On the stand, Janae testified for 4 hours. I begged them to check the timestamp, she said. They didn't even glance at it. They said I fit the description. A black girl in a hoodie. That's not a description, that's a profile. The defense tried to rattle her, accused her of exaggerating. She stared down the lawyer. I was there. You weren't. The judge's gavel fell like thunder. Outside, her father waited, arms crossed. You did good, he said softly. Janae smiled for the first time in days. Not done yet. 2 weeks later, the jury reached a verdict. Guilty on all counts for the officers. Damages awarded, $3.2 million. Mandatory reform for Rutherford University security practices. Federal oversight initiated. As cameras flashed, Janae stood tall behind the podium. We didn't win because we were loud, she said. We won because we were right. This verdict isn't just justice for me, it's a warning to anyone who thinks a badge is a shield from accountability. But behind every bright light is a shadow. That night, a brick shattered her apartment window. A note attached, "You're not a hero. You're just lucky." She stared at it without flinching. She no longer believed in luck. She believed in truth. She began traveling abroad, speaking in places where state violence wore different uniforms. Brazil, South Africa, France, Jamaica. Her words sparked conversation. Her story lit sparks. People called her an activist, a warrior, problem. She answered each label the same way. I'm just someone who refused to stay invisible. Meanwhile, her father resigned his post. Not in defeat but in defiance. My duty is not to a title, he said during his final speech. It is to a country that must be better than this. Starting now. At the end of the year, Janae returned to Eastbrook. The quad was quiet. Leaves swirled. No patrol cars in sight. She stood in the spot where they'd thrown her down. Closed her eyes. Then she smiled. Because in that same place now stood a statue not of her, but of all those wrongly profiled and silenced. Beneath it a plaque, unseen no more, in honor of those whose voices rose, even when no one listened. They thought it was over. The courtroom verdict had come and gone. The officers had been sentenced. The university implemented new training policies. Janae's name became a symbol in textbooks and TED Talks. But racism doesn't end with a gavel. It evolves. 3 months after the trial, An anonymous video leaked online police bodycam footage never submitted to the court. It showed the moments before Janae's arrest. One officer joking to the other, "Let's make this quick, I've got a tea time." Then laughter. Then the sound of her body hitting the ground. The footage sparked a second wave. Bigger. Angrier. This wasn't about a mistake anymore. It was about a culture. And now, that culture had a face one it couldn't hide behind anymore. In a high-rise office in downtown D.C., Janae sat with a group of organizers, lawyers, and survivors. They weren't planning a protest. They were drafting legislation, the Justice by Presence Act, a policy that required all campus security and local police interactions with students to be monitored, with live data transmission to an independent civilian board. No more lost footage. No more malfunctioning cameras. The bill was bold, expensive, controversial. The opposition called it government overreach, anti-police, radical activism disguised as reform. But they didn't see Janae's face when she read the proposal aloud in front of Congress. "I was thrown to the ground and cuffed like a criminal," she said. "Not because I broke the law, but because the people with power knew they wouldn't be held accountable. I'm not here to punish officers. I'm here to protect citizens." Applause erupted from behind her. Her father stood at the back, watching quietly. That night, a letter was slipped under her hotel door. Black envelope. No return address. Inside, a photo of her father in military gear, crosshairs drawn over his face. Below it, one sentence. "We didn't forget. Neither should you." She didn't call the police. She called a press conference. Holding the letter up to the cameras, she stared into every lens. "If you think threats will stop me," she said, "you've misunderstood everything about me." The backlash grew. Anonymous blogs smeared her name. Conservative pundits called her a spoiled political daughter using trauma for clout. One headline read, "From Cuffs to Congress: How Janae Carter Manipulated America." But every attack just made her louder, stronger. She toured campuses again. Not with anger, with stories. Stories of black students afraid to walk alone at night. Of professors who locked their doors when students looked suspicious. Of cafeteria workers fired after speaking up about harassment. She wasn't a headline anymore. She was a movement. The Justice by Presence Act passed its first vote in the Senate by one vote. And it passed because of her. Senator Ramirez, a centrist from Nevada, stood before casting her deciding vote. "I have disagreed with Ms. Carter in the past," she said. "But watching my own daughter, who's black and adopted, cry while listening to Janae's testimony made me realize something. Fear doesn't belong in education, and silence doesn't belong in justice." The chamber fell still. Then, yes, Janae was sitting in a diner in Chicago when she got the call. "Passed," her father said. "House and Senate." Her hands trembled on the coffee cup. "I don't know whether to scream or cry." He chuckled. "Do both. I'll wait." That evening, in front of a packed stadium in Philadelphia, Janae took the stage. No teleprompter. No prepared remarks. Just truth. "I was never supposed to be standing here," she began. "I was supposed to be broken, silenced, buried under headlines and hashtags. But instead I stood up. Cheers. And this fight was never just mine. It belongs to every student who walks into a room and is immediately seen as a threat. To every parent who fears getting that call. To every voice that says, 'I matter,' and is met with laughter." She paused. "And to the ones watching from the shadows, still hoping we'll be quiet?" She stepped forward, fire in her voice. "We're not going anywhere." The months that followed changed everything. Universities across the country began adopting parts of the act preemptively. Several police departments implemented civilian review panels. Public trust in campus policing rose. Incidents of excessive force dropped in the first year by nearly 38%. The model was spreading internationally. Janae was invited to speak at the United Nations. But she never forgot where it started. On the first anniversary of her arrest, she returned to Rutherford University. A mural now covered the wall of the library. It showed dozens of black faces, students, alumni, janitors, activists rising like a tide. In the center, not her portrait, but her shadow representing every unnamed victim. She stood in front of it with a group of new freshmen. One girl asked, "Does it still hurt?" Janae smiled softly. "It always will, but I don't carry it alone anymore." That night, she met her father for dinner. He looked older, more at peace. Over fried catfish and cornbread, they finally laughed full, deep laughter that comes only after surviving fire. "You remember what you said to those cops that day?" he asked. She smirked. "Which part?" He leaned in. "The part where you didn't say anything. You just stared them down like they were ants under glass." "I was too angry to speak," she replied. "Funny," he said. "That silence screamed louder than anything I've ever heard." They clinked glasses. To the scream. But Janae knew the work wasn't done. The systems that hurt her were old, rooted deep. She founded a national organization, Light the Ground. Its mission: education, reform, and healing through community. She built safe campuses, launched scholarship funds for victims of police abuse, trained young leaders in policy advocacy. She didn't want followers. She wanted builders. Years later, standing in front of her own nonprofit headquarters, a reporter asked her, "What would you say to those officers today?" She didn't blink. "I'd say thank you." The reporter blinked. "Thank you?" "Yeah," she said. "They tried to destroy me, and in doing so, they revealed exactly what needed to change. They gave me a weapon more powerful than hate." Clarity. She turned to the camera. "And to everyone out there still waiting to be seen?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "We see you." 3 years had passed since the incident. The world, of course, hadn't healed overnight. The headlines had moved on. New crises had come and gone: floods, elections, war zones. But in pockets of the country, in classrooms, courtrooms, and campus sidewalks, Janae's story still echoed. She never intended to become a leader. She'd said it 1,000 times. "I didn't step into history. It stepped on me." But something strange had happened after the verdict. After the applause and the flame of fame, she kept showing up. Not because she wanted the spotlight, because she knew what it felt like to be ignored. On a rainy spring afternoon in Baltimore, she stood in a dimly lit high school gymnasium, face to face with a young boy named Elijah. He was barely 16, black, thin, with quiet eyes and a nervous twitch in his jaw. He'd just been expelled for aggressive behavior. The school's version? He raised his voice after being shoved by a security guard. Her team had been called in to mediate. Janae listened, patiently, fully. When he finished his story, she didn't rush to console or rescue him. Instead, she leaned in. "Do you know what they hate the most?" Elijah blinked. "What?" "When we stay calm, when we stay smart, when we don't let them rewrite the story." She slid a worn copy of Baldwin's The Fire Next Time across the table. "Start here, then write your own." He took it with trembling hands. Later that evening, she walked back to her car alone. Rain pelted the hood. Streetlights shimmered. A man approached from the shadows, hoodie low, hands in his coat. Her body tensed. "Miss Carter?" he asked softly. She didn't move. "Yes." He raised both hands. "I'm not here for anything bad. I just wanted to say thank you." She looked closer. His eyes, his walk, the scar on his chin. Then she remembered. He was there that day, the day of her arrest. A student who had filmed it. The original video that started it all. "You changed everything," he said. "No," she replied. "You did. You pressed record." Her nonprofit, Light the Ground, had expanded into 12 cities. She no longer ran it directly. She trained the next wave: organizers, lawyers, mediators, artists. Kids like her once, now warriors in their own right. On her last day as executive director, she stood in front of a room filled with them, all ages, all races, every one of them carrying a scar and a voice. She looked around and said something no one expected. This isn't about me anymore. And it never was. Applause, sure. But more than that, understanding. It was their turn now. That summer, her father fell ill. He didn't say much, just grew quieter, more contemplative. They sat together on the porch of a lakeside cabin, a place they hadn't visited since she was a child. He stared at the water. I spent so many years thinking power came from rank, from title. And now, he looked at her. Now I know it comes from voice, from truth, and from the people who refuse to sit down when it gets dangerous. She placed her hand over his. You were my first proof I mattered. He smiled. You were mine. At his funeral, world leaders sent flowers. Senators flew in. But Janae kept it small. Family, friends, quiet resistance. She gave no speech, just stood beside the casket and whispered, You always showed up when it mattered. Now I'll keep showing up, even when it's hard. 5 years after the arrest, Janae was invited back to Eastbrook University this time to deliver the commencement address. She almost declined. Too many memories. But something pulled her back. She stepped onto the same stage where she'd once been a student, uncertain, invisible, angry. Now the auditorium was filled with graduates, the most diverse class in the school's history. Her image lit up the screen behind her. A hush settled. Then she spoke. I remember the day I stopped believing the lie. Pause. The lie that told me I was only what others feared. The lie that said silence was safer. That being polite would protect me. That if I just followed the rules, I'd be safe. Louder now. But the truth? Some of us were never given the rules. Just punishment. And some of us learned that survival means breaking silence even if your voice shakes. She looked at the front row. At the brown girl gripping her diploma like a lifeline. The boy with the cane. The graduate in the hijab. The son of immigrants. This moment, this degree isn't a shield. It's a mirror. Use it to reflect the truth back at anyone who dares to look away. She stepped back, then smiled. And remember, you are not invisible. Not anymore. And never again. The crowd erupted. And in that roar, somewhere between applause and hope, the ghosts of that day, the pain, the cuffs, the concrete, began to dissolve. She didn't forget. She transformed. Later, alone in the library, she walked past her own mural. She paused, not to admire, but to touch the edge where her shadow met the light. Someone had written a note and taped it to the base. Because of you, I didn't quit. Class of 2029. She folded it carefully and whispered, Keep going. That fall, she published a memoir. When they looked away, it broke records. But more than that, it became a textbook in social justice classes across the country. In its final chapter, she wrote, They thought silence would erase me, that power would humble me. But I learned to build with broken things. I took their handcuffs and forged a key. I took their doubt and built a door. And on the other side, a world where every black student walks into school, not as a suspect, but as a future. In the final image of the documentary they made about her life, Janae stands at the edge of a school playground. Children are running, laughing. A security officer waves politely from the gate. Janae watches, not to supervise, but to remember, because once she was the girl on the ground. Now, she watches the next generation rise. Not unseen, but unstoppable. The end.